Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lock Shop. Nielsen and Hustler with you. I obviously presented to you by our friends at Coolbet Canada. When you sign up, just use the code LOCKSHOP so they know we sent you. If you're watching on the live stream or on the archived video a little bit later on, subscribe to the podcast as well. Just search The Lock Shop on all your podcasting platforms and give us a sub when you check it out there. Huss, happy Friday, bud. What's up?
Well, long weekend. Weather's garbage, but we got some great playoff action. We got some great junior playoff action, too. Edmonton Oil Kings and Winnipeg Ice. By the way, you can also wager on that on Coolbet. I think the Oil Kings plus 114 tonight, and the Ice around minus 151. But listen, it's not quite beach weather around here, so we'll hunker down. Lots to get to. We got the PGA Championship going on right now, round 2 of the National Hockey League playoffs, conference finals in the NBA, Major League Baseball. No shortage of areas to drop a sprinkle on or two, Dusty.
Just sprinkling everywhere the entire long weekend. That is true. No doubt about that. And we've got lots to get to today. Chris Abbott's going to pop by a little bit later on. I had a chance to catch up with Chris. Went to the Jays game on Wednesday. Went and watched the Oilers and Flames at a bar in Toronto, which was bizarre. Sitting in Toronto, seeing a bunch of people in Flames and Oilers jerseys. But it was a pretty good crowd for a game that was obviously lights out ridiculous, and I don't think we get anything like that tonight or at any other point in this series. But my goodness, Huss, that was must watch there. Like, that was insane.
I was actually thinking about you at the game. By the way, the Coolbet seats look pretty good. I'm here schlepping it, banging out PGA Tour previews with JBM and P. Greggy, and you guys are in row 4 behind the plate at the Dome. I was somewhat jealous. But yeah, the game 1, I mean, I knew this was going to be sort of a wild series, and we knew the atmosphere was going to be incredible with the rivalry between the two teams in 3 decades plus since they met in the playoffs. But I don't think anyone could have imagined that we would have actually had as bizarre a game as took place. And here's the thing. As much as the game ended up being 6-6 in the third period, that was a shit kicking by Calgary.
Yeah.
I mean, that game really was not close in any aspect.
Oilers had no business being back in there, buddy. Like,
no. And listen, from Calgary's side of things, I mean, I think they really feel like, wow, we won a game in which our all-star goalie played the worst that he's played in a long time. Like, I don't think for a second that Jacob Markstrom looked anything like he did in game 1 later on in this series. Hey, Connor McDavid will make a few guys look bad, but you know what I'm saying. And to me, this is all about the Oilers and their ability to get back in this series and really just to match the energy and the relentlessness of the Calgary Flames, because it was not close in the play of the game, in the puck battles. Calgary really did dominate in so many areas of that game. Now, that being said, I think there's some things that Edmonton has to feel good about getting back into it and all that, but it really won't matter unless they can match the intensity and the passion of the Calgary Flames right now. And listen, that building is going to be wild. I think it's an 8:30 p.m. local start.
8:30 local start tonight,
dude,
buddy.
That is going to be the drunkest arena that we've seen in a long time. I mean, people are probably pre-gaming right now, 8 hours before the game.
Yeah,
and how things end up. Okay. Bottom line is Edmonton's going to need to come out better. I do think, and you'd have a better lean on this than me, you know, Mike Smith, as much of as an enigma as he was and as terrible as he was in game number 1, I actually do like the early hook. Give him a chance to sit out that game, refresh, focus himself, and come back in. And I'll say one thing, he did bounce back quite well in the Kings series after some underwhelming performances, especially in game 6 and 7. So I wouldn't say this is a fait accompli, but I still think it's a tall task for the Edmonton Oilers, considering the way the Flames are playing right now.
Well, and we're going to get right into it. Let's just continue the conversation. We'll get to some NBA stuff, some Blue Jays a little bit later on. Huss has some PGA stuff he wants to get to. I got some Formula One early sprinkles that you might want to hop on right now as well. And then Chris Abbott's going to be by in about 5 minutes. So let's just dive right into the NHL playoff action tonight, Huss. And let's just stick with the Oilers and Flames because we're there, and then we'll get to Carolina and the Rangers. So on the under, a bold move after a 15-goal game. He's going to go to the under. Interesting.
You know what? Listen, this is a bet on a couple things. I mean, number one, I think the Edmonton Oilers are going to come in and be far more focused on what they're doing in their own end and try to manufacture chances out of responsible defensive play. Whether they can do that or not, I guess we will see. I absolutely think we'll have a big bounce back game from Jacob Markstrom. And I think I'm feeling actually kind of positive about Mike Smith and the way he'll be able to bounce back today. So listen, I think the goaltending is going to be much better. I expect a completely different hockey game. And I think it actually might be somewhat tentative and lower scoring early on in the game. So I'm going the other side tonight. I'm taking the under 6.5 at -106 after 15 goals in game number 1. I mean, listen, I do like Calgary in this series. And as I mentioned, I mean, I do like Calgary with the way that they played. Listen, it would be great. I'd love to lose this bet of Flames -2.5 the series at +125, which would mean that we'd be getting to game 6 or potentially game 7. Is with what we saw in game number 1. I'm not sure that changes right now. And the one thing that I do know is that Daryl Sutter's not changing a damn thing about the way he's putting his team together, about the way they're coming out. And they play pretty consistently night in, night out. That's not the same thing with the Edmonton Oilers. But for tonight's game, we're going to bet the under. -6.5, -106 in this game. And as I mentioned, I already had Flames -1.5 in our early picks. I'm almost doubling down on this one and getting the +125 on Flames -2.5.
I think the best bet in this hockey game tonight is Connor McDavid over 1.5 points, because it's only -109 right now. Like, I thought this might be sitting at -140, -145. The guy has had at least 2 points in 7 of the 8 playoff games he's played in so far. And it's sitting, when I saw it today, I went over, I think I said on my show this morning on the radio, I said, it's probably not much value in betting McDavid at 1.5 points tonight. So I said, ride with him at 2.5, but 1.5 at -109. I mean, I'll take that all day long. So, I mean, you might even want to double check that one for me, Huss, because I don't know why it's sitting at -109 with the way he's played so far in these playoffs. Like,
well, listen, -109 for over 1.5 points for any other player in the National Hockey League is a ridiculous number. It's not a ridiculous number for Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
And you're exactly right. He has been the team, and he was brilliant in game number 1. He was one of the few guys that sort of showed up and showed out in that game. He's going to need some help, but like we saw in game number 7, he's been putting his team on his back, and this is such an important game. I'm sure you'd agree, Dusty. If Calgary gets up 2-0 and goes back to Edmonton, they'll really have a stranglehold on this series. I think we're going to see a desperate Oilers team and a real sense of urgency from the club, and that all is going to start with the guy in the C on his chest, who's been far and away the best player in the Stanley Cup playoffs up until this point.
The one other thing I want to add on this game is that everybody's, Markstrom giving up the 6 in game 1, and it wasn't great. And I don't know if you'll score that many on Markstrom again. But the Oilers have played 5 games against Calgary this year. Markstrom's been in every single one of them, and they've scored 5 goals in 4 of those 5 games, at least 5 goals. So they have not had a problem scoring on Markstrom this year. In 5 of the games he's played against the Oilers, he's been beaten 5 times in 4 of them. So I think they're going to score goals. So, but tonight, with the way that Jay Woodcroft is coached and the way that Mike Smith has bounced back so far in these playoffs, if you're going to get an under in this series, it might be tonight. So I don't mind that play, but I still think even if the Oilers score only 2 or 3 goals, McDavid's still probably going to be in on both of them. So I don't mind either of our bets tonight. I think we're going to do okay on this one. Now, Rangers, Carolina, we're going head to head here. You got something else, Huss, on the Battle of Alberta, or do you want to get to it?
I just wanted to ask you about Draisaitl. I mean, we joked that he's turning like a cruise ship right now. I mean, he still managed to be productive in these games, and he's playing 22 minutes, but he seems like a shell of himself. I mean, do you have much expectation for Leon? It's been pretty amazing what he's been able to do since the injury, staying in the lineup.
I don't have much expectations for him. The only thing that surprised me about this is that he's obviously playing significantly injured, and he's still playing 22 minutes. Like, he played 22 minutes in game 1, and I asked it at one point when they were down like 4. I was just like, at what point do you shut this guy down? No. And then a couple quick ones, and you're like, it's a game. And the same people who were replying to me being like, yeah, right now. I don't know why he's already not shut down. Then they're like, I even tweeted out, never, like, let him continue to go. So but at the same time, like, especially you watch him on the power play, when he gets the puck on the power play, Calgary doesn't wait around and let him make plays. They pressure him because he obviously is in a spot where he can, put his weight on that ankle and try to protect the puck, and he's laboring significantly. So I don't have any expectations for him. And my point of this, like, to me, I'm thinking you get from Draisaitl, and you're still going to get stuff from him as a bonus because he probably shouldn't even be playing anyway. So I wish they could, because I think there's such a better team when he's on one line and McDavid's on the other. And now it's tough because you want to have him with McDavid, so McDavid can put him in spots where he doesn't need to have all of his mobility, right? So it's frustrating for sure.
Honestly, speaking of that, and I totally agree with you, the guy they need to step up and be a different player than he was in game number 1 is Nuge.
Yeah.
I mean, Nuge just getting pushed around by Backlund. I mean, those 50-50 puck battles were 90-10 puck battles. A lot of, stick waving and whatnot. Listen, he's a very, very key player, even more so with Draisaitl.
You can't be pushed around by Backlund, though. Like, nothing against Backlund, but, like, physically, you can't be pushed around by Backlund if you're Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Like, you can't. So, yeah, needs to step up.
He's too important, too big of a hole that, to fill with Draisaitl. And if he is going to be there playing those big minutes, you can't be chasing the puck around the whole time because you're losing all those puck battles. So I can't wait for the game tonight. We'll have to wait a little bit, but we do have a nice appetizer, and that, of course, is this Kane Rangers game. And I'll tell you what, this maybe is a little bit of a homer pick. You say, Homer, what do you mean? Well, the Rangers are the Jets team now. If you're a Winnipeg Jets fan, you're cheering for the Rangers because in the Andrew Kopp trade, the Jets got Morgan Barron and 2 second-round picks. But one of the second-round picks turns into a first-rounder if the Rangers win the series. So I actually did watch game 1 very, very closely, and I was really impressed with the Rangers and the way they played. Shesterkin's back. He looks like the guy in the regular season, not the guy that was getting chased from the net multiple times against the Pittsburgh Penguins. And listen, if it wasn't for just an incredible play by Aho late in the third period to tie it up and get it to overtime, we'd be talking about the Rangers with a 1-0 lead. Gerard Gallant loved the way his team played. He said afterwards, as disappointing as it was, if we can continue to do that, we are going to be right in this series. And I kind of feel like they left one on the table. I think they'll come back even more determined to even this series up tonight. And I think they get it done. I'm going to take the Rangers as the underdog on the money line at plus 142. I wouldn't be surprised if this series goes deep. I know we were talking about it being a 6-game series before. The Rangers look like a much, much better and more playoff-ready team, having survived Pittsburgh the way they came back from that 3-1 deficit. I've got a lot more optimism that the Rangers can be in this series and potentially win it. But a win tonight will be huge to get that done. You don't want to go down 2-0. And to be honest, they probably don't deserve to be in this position, but this is where they are. I think they come up big tonight. And I'm taking the Rangers to give the Canes their first home loss in the playoffs this evening.
Yeah, I didn't watch this game. We were at the baseball game with Chris. He's going to hop on here right away. But Carolina's 5-0 at home. I don't think they can be happy with the way that they played in game 1. You make a good point about the Rangers maybe feeling like they got a little bit hosed in game 1 and they come back out. But I also think it could be a wake-up call for Carolina that, hey, the Rangers might have got maybe a little lucky with the Crosby injury to get by the Pittsburgh Penguins, and they weren't ready for him in game 1. So Carolina's just been so good at home. I'm gonna go with Carolina. I'm gonna say they get it done in regulation tonight. But Carolina hasn't been good on the road so far. So everything you said about the series with the Rangers, I think it could be legit. But I'm gonna go head to head with you tonight. We'll mix it up a little bit here. I'll go Carolina plus 102 in regulation tonight, and we'll continue the NHL discussion here with Chris Abbott, who is gonna hop on from Coolbet Canada. You can find him on Twitter at Coolbet Chris, and I see he's got a bunch of Gatorade behind him, and I wonder if he picked those up after our late night on Wednesday. Chris Abbott, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. The hangover's finally gone, but yes, I did pick up extra Gatorade. A couple of boys are in town from Halifax this weekend.
Oh, smart thinking.
It's the nicest day in Toronto so far this year. So if I show up on the broadcast again tonight, I should have a different glow about me.
Well, I'll say couldn't miss you guys. A little bit of TV time right behind the plate. Those are some beauty seats you guys had. Taking good care of the big guy when he's out east.
Inside Baseball, Hustler, I had given away my tickets because I didn't think I could make the game. We had no plans to go to the game. I actually had to just dart down to New York to do a Nexus interview because our government has been so kind to keep all their services closed like a bunch of morons. So I actually, to complete your Nexus interview, you have to book one in the U.S. So Dusty's like, what are we doing tonight? I'm like, I'm in Niagara Falls. I was like, I don't know when I'll be back. And then I'm like, I might get back. And it's like, let's get some last minute tickets. And there were some good last minute tickets left. So it was pretty cool. It was real good seats.
It was weird because Mark Rowe from TSN was just across from us, and Sam Cosentino walked by us to get to his seat. He was in the same row just down the way. So it was it was a who's who of guys you might not know. All four of us included. You know, it was pretty cool.
Caller section, death row in the house. Jeez, the whole gang.
It was a who's who of like almost famous, you know?
Yeah,
it was good.
Pretty much. That's fair enough. You're right. I think that's good. Hey, this is because we were just talking about the Jays. We were there. Huss and I got some Jays plays coming up a little bit later on in this episode. But Chris, you're going tonight. I know you're always all over the Jays. Have you locked in today's plays? Like, what do you got? What are you doing?
Yeah, so my buddy Steve and I are just here at my place right now, and we're like, well, we're drinking. We got to put
of course you got to be on it, yeah.
A ridiculous amount of bets in. So I think we've got a Vladdy home run, which he is well overdue for. He's around plus 400, plus 350. Bo home run. Bo's home run numbers are always really high, like plus 600, 700 tonight. What else am I on? Hyunjin Ryu over 3.5 Ks. I think it's about minus 130. The Cincinnati Reds are like number 4 in K rate against left-handed pitchers, number 6 in K rate overall. So and a number 3.5. Don't hate it. And Ryu was decent in his return from the IL stint. And then
he was.
On top of that, we've got Luis Castillo over 2.5 earned runs. That was pretty much a pick 'em. I think it was minus 110. Yeah, and then Jays minus 1. Jays minus 1, which got us to about minus 115, minus 120, because they're minus 150 on the money line.
Perfect. I mean, that's a nice card to be sitting there
with more to come, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. What's the rest?
Yeah.
I'm bullish on Ryu for tonight. I mean, I'm going to take them on the run line, and I think they score. I mean, I think having Cincinnati come in, although Castillo's pretty good. I mean, I think this is a perfect way to really get those bats going and sort of with you on some of those props. But I think it's very important for Ryu to come back and get into a bit of a groove. I think this is a perfect team to start it out against. And I mean, they've had some great pitching performances from some of the other guys. They're paying Ryu a lot of money. They need him to be not necessarily the horse of the rotation, but a contributing member of it.
And he can't be a drag on it, right? Like,
I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt tonight. I think the bats get going, and I think the big Korean has a nice night on the mound.
The big Korean. There we go. He is Korean and he is big, so you're not telling any lies right there. He needs to, though, right? Like, he really, really needs to be good because if he's not good, he's bad. Like, there's no average Hyunjin Ryu start.
Hey, well, and by the way, my faith in my guy Kikuchi continues to be rewarded. How about him lately? Everyone said that this guy was done after 2 starts. He's been money in his last 3 or 4, Chris.
I was out on him early. I got to be honest, but I was at the game where he pitched against Seattle, and I could see the fire in his eyes from my seat. Like, he was fired up to beat his former teammates, and I think that gets overblown sometimes. This time, no. I wonder if it was not irreconcilable differences why he left Seattle, because he was ready to go. He was good. He was good the other night.
Well, they're going to get major bang for their buck if he can continue pitching the way he is for the next 3 years at $12 million a season. I mean, for a guy that was in that 5-hole right off the bat and had a couple sketchy starts, and the diversity in his pitches right now. I mean, you don't know what's coming from him. And as I said, that's a real, real nice start for the Jays. But if we're going to hit these overs, and especially the juiced up overs, we need a nice hot streak to get going. So hopefully tonight will be that night to begin it.
I think the Cincinnati Reds are the prime candidate for the Jays right now. Like, they should be able to just rip through them. And if it doesn't happen tonight, I'm going to double down tomorrow, because we got the big Haas on the mound for the Jays against some guy named Hunter Green, who is 1-6 with a 6.21 ERA going for the Reds tomorrow afternoon.
That's juicy. I like that.
The balls shall be flying around Rogers Center. We're watching from the flight deck tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that too.
Jays minus 3.5, Jays minus 4.5, whatever the biggest run line number I can get tomorrow, I will be on it after you drop that little tidbit for us.
Yeah, definitely first 5, because the bullpen hasn't been great. So don't get, first 5 bets are probably pretty smart right now. Plus Romano and Meza have both been out of the lineup. So the bullpen hasn't been great. The back end isn't there. So I would also get on Manoah props tomorrow because he wasn't great in his last outing. He was average. Actually, wait, no, I'm got him confused with Gosman, who was not great when we were there, Dusty.
We watched him. He was not good, and he did not go over 6.5 strikeouts.
Yeah, but I think Manoah, they're probably going to try and get Manoah to go deep into this game on Saturday to give the bullpen a bit of a blow. So I'll also be all over the big Haas tomorrow.
Excellent. Let's flip over to the National Hockey League, where you had the over in the Flames-Oilers in game one. Hit that so early. And then what do you like? I think you live bet the over 12.5, or was it over 11.5? Yeah. And hit that as well. And then we tried to ride the over 15.5 with about 8 minutes left and came up just one short. But like look, it's hilarious, but if you're watching a game and you see something like that developing, man, you can make a lot of money live betting things like that, can't you?
Oh, it was brutal. I remember the first 2 goals went in, and I looked at Dusty, and I said, you know what the worst part about this is? He's letting another one in within 5 minutes, and he did, and that was it for Mike Smith. And, I was saying to this when we were watching the game at Real Sports, every time I watch these teams play, it's just ridiculous. And I don't know if it's the emotion in the building and the emotion between the teams, or the fact that they do have some goaltenders who are prone to not have good nights. Like when Jacob Markstrom's bad, he's bad. So like the bipolar element for all those goaltenders is in effect. So you could see that happen again in the series. Although I saw one of you guys had under in that game tonight. Yeah. I think the totals are way overblown in the NHL right now. Normally in the playoffs we're looking at 5.5, and we've got all these 6.5 sitting there. 2 unders last night was like the easiest money I've made in a while. Although Jared Bednar, for some reason, when it was 4-1, decided to keep the goalie out. I'm like, Jared has the over. Like there was no other explanation. Like it was 4-1 with a minute left. You're down. Like you've lost. Put the goalie back in the net and save the rest of us.
Yeah. What do you make a Tampa situation, or more the Panthers situation?
Yeah, it's a Panthers situation
on home ice.
I'll tell you what I made of the Tampa situation is a few $100s, because I bet on them pre-series to beat the Leafs. I bet on them down 1-0 to beat the Leafs. And I bet on them to win this series as well at like plus 135 or whatever it was. Just watching them play. And sometimes we I don't know, give too much credit to the coaches, and sometimes we don't give them enough. And despite the fact that he's won 2 Stanley Cups and was named Canada's Olympic coach, I don't think John Cooper gets enough credit for the way his team plays. In the defensive zone, they swarm you, and it's everyone. Steven Stamkos is out there blocking shots. Even if it was Braden Point in the line, it doesn't matter who you are in that lineup. They just keep coming at you. There's nowhere to move. And I was watching that last night. The Florida forwards would get in the zone and there's nowhere to go. And then if you do manage to get past the first line of defense, you've got your Victor Hedmans and everyone else back there on the blue line. And then you've got Vasilevsky. So I think they tailor-make their game, knowing that they've got a great goalie back there and they can be a little more aggressive on defense. And I just love this from Tampa right now. And conversely, Andrew Brunette looked like a guy who was in over his head last night. He looked very. He
did a little bit, didn't he? I thought that too. Yeah, that's a good point, buddy.
Yeah. He looked, especially when the game-winning goal went in. You could see in his face he was like, I don't know what to do. Now, there's not much you can do. There's 4 seconds left. But to me, he looked like a deer in the headlights. And I now wouldn't be shocked if this ends up a sweep. Part of me wants to take Florida plus 1.5 on the series price and get a really nice middle opportunity. I don't know that they can push this to 7 games.
No, I'm with you. I mean, I had Tampa on the series number, and I bet them as a road dog plus 140, plus 145 the last 2 nights. And listen, they've got it done. They are on another level. I mean, there's the experience factor that Florida doesn't have. Mm-hmm. I got Vasilevsky over Bob every day of the week, and the coaching cannot be understated. Brunette's done a great job. He's a finalist for the Jack Adams. The guy wasn't even a head of coach at the beginning of the year. It was a unique situation. The team's done great, but I think I think midnight is about to strike for the Panthers in the season that they've had, and no one is going to be able to call themselves the man until they take out the Tampa Bay Lightning, and that is easier said than done.
Maybe nobody does.
I will. Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, if you've got a Tampa Bay futures ticket from, I think they were like 12-1 before the playoffs started.
Yeah.
So, listen, should they get through this series, I don't really see them having a real hard time with Carolina or New York, and then you're in the final. So, there's still a lot of kilometers in between now and then. But and I just took a look at the book, and the book doesn't believe in the Panthers either. It's not +1.5; it's +2.5 for the Panthers at -125 for the series.
Ooh.
That might have me a little bit interested. They'd only have to win 2 games.
Chris, as always, buddy, we appreciate the time, and enjoy the weekend with your boys. All right.
I certainly will. We'll see which of the pictures and videos make it to the public domain, and maybe I'll send you guys some of the private stock as well.
There we go.
Right on, dude.
Good. See you, man.
Right,
It's Chris Abbott from Coolbet Canada. Follow him on Twitter at Coolbet. Chris is a good dude, and those were great seats. It was a nice little. Partnership thing there where I didn't pay for anything. Coolbet paid for everything, and it was great. So it was nice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're greasing out. As I said, I'm grinding out, dropping an hour of PGA picks with JBM and P. Greggy, and you're sipping double margaritas in row 4 right behind the plate. I love that pick you had of Vladdy though, right behind it. Oh, that's cool. I know
that was great. I sent it to my boy. He was fired up. He's like, he has the same bat as me. I'm like, it's not technically the same bat as you, but it's almost the same color. Look, we already kind of laid it out with the Jays, but our plays on the Jays here we got today, Huss, you kind of mentioned you're going to be on them run line, and everything you guys were saying about them made me even more confident in my pick. Over 4.5 team total for the Jays at -105. They are due for this type of game, I think, tonight. So I'm going to be on your play. I'm going to be on my play. I'm going to be on a combination and bet builder as well. And I think Chris made a good point. If it doesn't happen tonight, double down on it tomorrow, because it's going to happen one of these 2 nights.
No, I'm with you. I mean, I think I'm going to go back. I'm hoping that the Jays can, listen, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but have a big weekend. I mean, potentially run the table against Cincy. That's what I was saying. They need to get on a nice run. They had those tough series against New York. Oh, it's time to start winning some games and putting a bunch together. And obviously a nice start from Ryu would be a big part of making that happen beginning this evening with game 1 of the series.
All right, so there's a quick look at what we're doing with the Jays tonight. Let's slide over to the association here as well, Huss. And there's a couple different ways. You can get pretty creative with some of these series numbers right now, and then obviously just the game tonight. And I know the Mavs, you must be rattled, as the Mavs they're your boys. And it was not a first game 1, but I love the fact that you got the faith in them here in game 2.
No, for sure. I'm going right back to the Mavs. I think they're a much better team, and I think Luka Doncic has a monster game coming up in game number 2 tonight. I mean, the one thing that the Mavs have shown really right from the first series when they didn't have Doncic for a few of the games is that they're incredibly resilient. And when Luka heats up, which he often does, he is as unstoppable a player as there is in the NBA. Now, listen, they're going to have to do a bit better on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, you don't want to let the Splash Brothers have those open threes and start hitting them. But listen, I just think the Mavs, I think that was, they were losing. They were losing big in game 1, and they just sort of shut it down. I think that they'll come back refreshed with a renewed sense of energy and that desperation and urgency that we've talked about to avoid going down 2-0. This is a massive game for the Mavs if they think they can win the series. And I do think this series goes at least 6 games. So when I saw that, you've got -133 on over 5.5 for this, in addition to feeling boyish about them being able to cover tonight, I certainly think that they'll be able to play quite solidly at home. So we'll see what happens tonight. I think they get at least 1, if not 2 wins back on home court and take this series to 6 or potentially 7 games. I understand that Golden State's still a pretty heavy favorite, especially winning that game. But give me the Mavs +6.5 in tonight's game. And I'm also in on over 5.5 for the series at -133.
Yeah, I was torn on that 6.5 today. Like, I think Golden State's going to win game 2 here, but I don't think it's going to be what we saw in game 1. So I decided to take the Warriors money line tonight and then parlay it with Boston's money line as they return home for game 3. And it works out to -109 for the parlay there. And then I'm also going to say right now, you can go get Boston -1.5 at -128 in that series with the Miami Heat. And I know Miami took game 1 and then Boston rolled in game 2. Boston hit 23 pointers in game 2. They were 50% from beyond the arc. They're not probably going to do that again at that level. But the one thing I've noticed 7 of the 8 quarters so far in this series, the Celtics have been the better team. It's not even close. The Heat had one remarkable third quarter in game 1, 39-14. They outscored them. That's the only reason they won that basketball game. Like Boston, to me, watching as much of this as I have so far, looks like a significantly better team. So I think now might be the best value you can get on them to win this thing in 6 or less, but 6 here at -128 will get you some pretty decent value on the Celtics. You watch the Celtics, and we were talking about they were a favorite going into this series, Huss, and they were the road team. Yep. And you watch this series so far, and you look at the Boston Celtics are going to be going to the NBA Final. I would be very surprised if the Heat are able to finish this off against them.
Well, and we talked about it earlier this week, or maybe it was on Winnipeg Sports Talk, that after that game, after the Heat won, despite really being outplayed for the majority of the game, minus that one quarter, that the Celtics series number was looking pretty good. And I mean, the way they humiliated the Heat at home in game number 2, I think kind of sets. Let me ask you this just before we move on. To win the championship odds right now, Golden State plus 114. Golden State plus 114, Celtics plus 165, Heat 6-1, Mavs plus 650. Celtics at plus 165 is an interesting number. I'm with you. I mean, I'm ready to already put them into the finals. And just how deep and well-rounded they are, the defense they play, I think they're going to be a very, very tough team to beat 4 times.
Golden State's they're a really good team, but they're not what the Golden State Warriors were 4 years ago. Like even the Warriors pre-KD coming in, right? And I know they split with the Cavs in those 2 years, but that was a really good basketball team. And the Warriors they're a really good team, but they're not at that level. So I think a deep and insanely talented Celtics team too could very much give them a run. So if you told me, hey, here's $20, you can put it on the Celtics or the Warriors, and the Celtics will give you a bigger return, I'd take the Celtics right now. Based on the value there for sure. And I hope we get that series. I think we probably will get that series because I think that'd be a really good NBA final. I think that'd be a good series. All right, Huss, let's just slide back. We don't have any boards for this, but I know you've got some PGA stuff that you were looking at, and I've got a few F1 leans that we can get to here before we wrap up this episode. So what do you got, man?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, we've got some major cut sweat going this afternoon, seeing where things are at. I mean, my guy Scotty Scheffler, 3 over par right now. He's got 3 holes to go. That's tied for 69th. It's top 70 in ties. So I would imagine 3 over should be enough to get you to the weekend. And Justin Thomas has had one heck of a round. He just dropped to 67. He's in the clubhouse at 6 under. Rory, man,
I've been on under. Thomas like 4 times this year, and I'm not this week. And they're like, you bastard.
He's put himself in a great position, and we'll see with this wind at Southern Hills this afternoon, how Rory and Zalatoris and the other guys that are under par are able to do. But a brilliant first 36 for Justin Thomas. I had a great day. I was just looking at the open bets, and I have about 1 million of them because I was 2-0 yesterday on head-to-head PGA parlays. So I hit a plus 450 and a plus 414.
Ooh, nice work, buddy.
Got to sprinkle out on all the lock shop bets, but I do have one for you for this afternoon. So if you're with us, before tee-off, these late tee times, here you go. I'm taking Siwoo Kim at minus 103 over Tom Hoagie. Hoagie had a great first round. He's at 4 under par. I have a feeling he comes back to the mean a little bit. And I think Siwoo's been playing pretty good lately. Sam Burns, who was 1 over yesterday, one of the guys that I thought could be in the mix. I've got him at minus 122 over Cam Young. And Gary Woodland, minus 167 over Lee Westwood. So you put those 3 together, plus 473 for a late time 3 matchup head-to-head parlay. As I said, 2-0 yesterday. Hopefully good things happen in 3s and we can get another one. And by the way, I'll just quickly mention CoolBet has added live updated odds on the PGA throughout the weekend. So whether it's right now, whether it's later on, mid-round, you can see the odds are constantly changing. Get in on your guy at a good spot. And obviously, if you like Rory right now with what's happened with JT, his number's gone up. Rory's JT's gone down. So there's plenty of options if your pre-tournament picks are in the toilet right now and you need to reevaluate and get something else going for the weekend.
From a time management perspective, this is the last thing you needed. This is the last thing you needed is live updated golf odds throughout the entire weekend. Like, I can't even imagine it.
Well, the good thing is that there's nothing else going on right now. So I've been
Yeah.
actually playing Southern Hills on PGA 2K21 while watching it and following the odds on the other screen. I've got it completely unlocked.
What a
right
life. God, what a life you have. I'm so jealous of you sometimes. That's great. F1, just very quickly. And look, it's tough to lock these in because they haven't even got to qualifying yet. So follow my Twitter account at NielsenTSN1260. We'll retweet it from Lock Shop Bets, obviously, throughout the weekend once we get qualifying done and kind of see what the starting grid's going to look like. But just a couple of things. Second practice session today was like this. Charles Leclerc at 1, George Russell and Lewis Hamilton at 2-3. So a bunch of cars have had upgrades made over the last couple of weeks. Mercedes is one of them, and it looked not bad in practice today. Carlos Sainz was in the 4 spot. Verstappen was in the 5 spot, followed by Alonso, Perez, Vettel, Ocon, and Schumacher, which I wouldn't read too much into. But right now, if you go and look at the F1 odds over for the Spanish Grand Prix at Coolbet, Charles Leclerc at plus 130, but I like him to be the qualifying winner. I mean, this is a course that I think is better suited for Ferrari than it is for Red Bull, and obviously he's had a great car. And to win qualifying right now, which will be tomorrow, Charles Leclerc is at plus 100. So it's going to be, good money coming back for you in that situation. The other thing that I kind of look at a little bit, which I'm leaning towards, and we'll see how it plays out. But seeing Lewis Hamilton finish top 3 in practice today, and he's at plus 1,500 right now to win this entire thing. And if he can come out and have good qualifying, and if he's starting in let's say the second row even with his pedigree at that value of plus 1,500, he needs like one thing to break his way in that race, and he just hasn't had a lot of luck this year either. So I might throw a little sprinkle on Lewis today just to see how it plays out. Because like last year, couldn't get that guy anywhere over, minus 120 or plus 120, depending on how qualifying was with him and Max, right? So it's a crazy
But
number.
every year last year, I mean, you know me, I'm not a huge F1 guy, but we would always check it out in the lock shop, and I'd often bet on it. It's essentially, who are you going with this week? Is it Verstappen or is it Hamilton? And, there's Leclerc, there's been some other guys, and it's been very disappointing so far for Hamilton. But you have to think that sooner or later, the car improvements will catch up, and then he'll have a legitimate chance of winning, because just on driving alone, he'd have to be right up there head to head against pretty much anyone. So you're going to hang a 15-1 number on with some optimistic, results in training and in trials. I think there'll be a lot of people on that. Where is the race this week?
Barcelona, Spain. It's in Barcelona. Ooh. They go to the big cities, right? It's just like, Barcelona for a week. Like, just the life Miami, is unbelievable.
Barcelona.
Yeah. It's just the best. All right, so that's gonna do it for another episode of the Lock Shop. Of course, if you've been watching on the live stream on Twitter or YouTube or whatever, give us a like on the podcast as well. Subscribe to the podcast. Just search the Lock Shop on all your podcasting platforms. Brought to you by Coolbet. All the odds that we talk about all day on the Lock Shop you can find over at coolbet.com. Huss, Winnipeg Sports Talk coming up in just over 5 minutes, man. We'll let you go, but what's coming up?
Yeah, well, you know what? We're going to be talking to Jack Finley from the Winnipeg Ice and Oil Kings tonight. And by the way, if you check the hockey slate, if you want to get in on that series, as I mentioned at the start of the show, they do have odds for that. And in fact, I'll hit it right now just to let you know. Western Hockey League, Ice minus 152, Oil Kings plus 114 tonight. It's going to be an amazing, amazing series. So Finley's going to join us. Dave Naylor popping by for a full breakdown of the agreement between the CFL and the CFLPA. Game on. Cannot wait to start picking CFL games with you throughout the year.
Right around the corner, buddy.
Well, and of course, the Preakness is happening tomorrow. One of our sharps, Kirk Contois from the Downs, is going to come by and educate us on who we should be backing for the second leg of the Triple Crown this weekend. Going to be a great show, 1 p.m. Central Time on YouTube. If you haven't seen us before, just throw in Winnipeg Sports Talk in YouTube, hit that red subscribe button, and you can join us Monday to Friday, 1 o'clock Central, breaking down the big stories here in the PEG as well as around the sports world.
Excellent stuff. Enjoy the weekend, my man. We will catch up next Tuesday with another episode of The Lock Shop. Enjoy that weekend. Best of luck on your bets, and enjoy the golf, bud.
Hey, listen, still a 10% chance I just appear in Edmonton on Saturday or Sunday getting ready for this Battle of Alberta. I've been working this for the last couple days. The flights aren't cheap right now, but stranger things have happened. Either way, though, we'll be back in the Lock Shop on Tuesday with more on the Battle of Alberta, Stanley Cup playoffs, and everything else going around that we can put a nickel on.